Welcome to What's on Your Bookshelf, a life and leadership podcast where we live out loud the pages of the books that are on our shelves, with your hosts, Denise Russo and Sam Powell.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What's on Your Bookshelf. This is our life and leadership podcast where we're living out loud the pages of the books that are on our bookshelves. The book that is now off of our shelf is called Let Them by Mel Robbins. My name is Denise Russo. My co-host is Sam Powell. We are on chapter 6, which is in section 2 of the book. This section is an interesting section that we're diving into, which is about what we do with other people's opinions. And this chapter is how to love difficult people.
I think this is a really heavy and hard topic for a lot of people, at like on an individual basis, but also on a macro level. I see a lot of discourse in the world, especially like generationally, of how people were raised and their perspective and how they do things, and how younger generations, especially like as you look at like the millennials and Gen Z, kind of have a different approach to like mental health overall than previous generations, especially like their parents' generations of like boomers, some of like Gen X, even a little bit too. Like I think Gen X is kind of just caught in the middle of everything. But like at a macro level, this is a topic that I think we talk about a lot, about how to love difficult people. What does it mean when some of the people who cause you the most strife in your life are your family, are the people who are here with you in this life? Regardless, like you don't get to choose who your parents are, your siblings are, your aunts and your uncles, and those things are, right? Like you can have a found family, you can have people you choose to spend your life with, but your family is your family sort of at the end of the day. And sometimes those people are the ones that are difficult. And sometimes you have to really reconcile. And you said it, I think, well at the end of our last episode, of like reconcile some of the grief that goes along with what you expect, what you want, and who you are. And so this chapter is like, trigger warning, my friends, might be heavy for you when you're reading this chapter, when we're having this discussion, because it's a hard and heavy topic for a lot of people, like I said, individually and at a macro level as well.
Can you imagine, Sam, being at work and working with someone who you just don't like and going up to them and just saying what you unfiltered want to say, like, stop being such a jerk. I hate you. You're stupid. But yet siblings tell each other that every day, or at least my kids do. And I can't imagine, because at work you have a guard up, right? And you don't tell people that because you try to have this professional, I guess, demeanor about you. But in the home, Mel says it, that your family tends to be a lot more blunt in your face with their opinions. They're mad that you don't come home for holidays, or you're late to weddings, or they constantly question the choices that you make, whether that's about where you go to school, who you marry, the jobs you decide to take, who you hang around, what you do. And they're harsher to your face. But she says it's because they have a lot more at stake in your happiness and in your success. So that's that whole two sides thing, where they can be that way, but that maybe it's because they have a lot more at stake for your happiness and success because of the love that they have for you.
Yeah. And she says, a lot of times that comes in like them pushing you, pushing their opinions, pushing their judgment. And she says, family has had opinions about you since you were born. They have known you the longest. They feel entitled to their opinions because they think they know what's best for you, and in parentheses, which is typically also what feels best for them. And you and I've talked about this, I think last episode, many, many other episodes on this podcast, of like, a lot of times the opinions someone gives about you are what they think about themselves, right? Or the advice they would give themselves. And I read this quote a while ago, it was years ago at this point, but it said that advice is a form of judgment. And it changed my entire perspective on how I help people, right? Because I'm someone that likes to give advice, likes to help you, likes to feel like, oh, I have lived a lot of things in life. Let me help guide you, especially to family, to my kids, so whatever. But when you really think about it and really kind of break down what is advice, advice is you telling someone what you think is best based on this little tiny sliver of insight that they gave you. And it really what you and the context of the whole quote was really in the idea of like you should lead with curiosity, lead with, and like a good coach will just ask you a whole bunch of questions, right? And so this is where like coaching training comes in that regard of like a coach's role is to never give you advice. Coaches who are out there giving you advice aren't being coaches in that moment. They might be coaches, but like that's not coaching. Coaching in its, real and true and pure sense is just asking questions, pulling information out of you. And so, when I come across someone now where it's like I'm going to give them advice about what they should do, I stop. I really like have to physically pinch myself sometimes of like, stop, ask them more questions.
Mhm.
And then before you give advice, before you lean into that, ask permission for it. Ask, hey, do you want me to tell you this? Or do you have this? Do you want to figure this out on your own? Right. And a lot of people, a lot of times just want to figure it out on their own. They're not looking for that. But when we're family, when the relationship is so tied and so close, and I feel like I know everything about you, even though I can never know everything about you, even my kids, right? I cannot know everything about kids. I don't know the thoughts that go through their head. And I see this a lot. I do assessments for youth athletes, and the assessments are done by the children. Children answer series of questions, and it's always interesting to me. I learned things about my own son that I didn't know when he did the assessment because it was that curiosity of like, what does he think? What's going on inside his head, his thoughts, his feelings, all of this stuff. Even though as his mom, I often feel entitled to give him my opinion, my advice, my this is what you should be doing because I think I know him. And we sit in this situation all day, every day with our family, with the people closest to us, of having them sort of bombard us with their opinions, their thoughts, their whatever. And it can get really difficult and really toxic if those thoughts, if those opinions become harmful to you.
I think about, I often quote things from Disney. And when this is talking about people that have opinions that can be harmful for you, and we're talking about family and how to love difficult people, Mel tells a story about being a step parent. And if you think about in any Disney movie where there is a stepmother, there's a word that usually comes before stepmother, which is evil. The evil stepmother.
Yes.
Isn't it funny that none of the movies are really about stepfather and that being evil or not evil? It's always
Yes.
about the mom. And so, but she goes on to really talk about how um, sometimes there needs to be grace from the person that is the parent, grace from the children that are in that. If you're in that situation where you've ever been a step parent, you have a step parent, you're from a broken family of some part, and they probably shouldn't even call it broken, right? Now they call it blended or something.
Blended, yeah.
Right? Blended.
Yep.
And so she says that the point is that the kids are grieving a loss of what they thought was normal, even if whatever was going on with the other parents and the original parents, that it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal to the point that which they had to actually break that abnormal. And so you have to understand the larger context and acknowledge that this let them believe, think, say, and do, and then let you own what you're going to think, say, or do from it is what's so important here for frame of reference. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a step family or whether it's your real family or whether it's people that are your friends that you consider your family, if they want to blame you or hate you because you did something that they disagree with for what somebody else maybe even did, then just let them, because it is hurting you. But if you continue to let that hurt you to the point where it's just destructive for your own well-being, there are some people that have really hurt me and my brother within the last couple of years, hurt us to deep cuts. And I think that these people that were once so close to us that have hurt us, Sam, I think they go to sleep every night being okay that they have hurt us or hurt my mom. I think
Yeah.
they're okay with it. And so my brother and I had this conversation not long ago where we said, you know what? Why is it that we're the ones going to sleep every night grieving and crying and hurt when these other people that once cared about us, because we made a decision that was in the best interest of my family and my brother's family and my mom,
Yeah.
that these people that are hurting us are probably going to sleep just fine at night.
Yeah. And she talks about this idea of frame of reference, which is understanding the lens through which somebody sees something and using it as a tool to look at those people that have harmed you, hurt you, especially those who are closest to you, and really try to understand what frame of reference they are coming from, right? Like really understanding how they're viewing the world, what their life experience has been in an empowered way, not to excuse behavior ever, but to help you. Again, this is all about like releasing that feeling in your chest, that tightness of like, oh, I'm carrying everyone else's burden, but saying like, I get it. I get why they do it. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean it doesn't bother me. It doesn't mean that it's okay in any way. It just means that I'm gonna let it go because I've done enough work. I've done the hard part of looking at this. And even if they can't or won't ever, it gives me a space to say, okay, I understand why this is happening. And so then it helps me just like release that hold, that control, that tightness in my own body about this thing because it's like, all right, yeah, like I get it, right? Like I get why you act this way because your father acted this way, because your mother acted this way, because their mother, right? And this is where like knowing history and knowing stories and understanding all of that can help you just come to a space of release on, again, not excuse, but just release of like, I get it. And then that's where the other half of her theory comes in. And then like, okay, so what am I going to do about it? Now that I know this is the reality, now that I understand this in a way that helps me just process it, what do I do? What choices do I get to make? And like I've listened to your journey over these last couple of years with their, your family and and I've watched you make these choices over and over again of, well, what do I do now? Right? Like this is a lot for me to process, for me to figure out, a lot for me to feel. But like you have this really wonderful way of, okay, so what do I do with it? Right? Like how do I carry forward? How do I move in a way that's more aligned to my values, what I believe, the life I want? And that is a hard, hard thing to do. But again, it's this freedom of letting it go, of not being the person in the situation, stressing about it, losing sleep over it at night, when the other person might not be at all.
It's so hard when you have to change something in your life that is long time the same. So she goes to talking about like this. We talked about evil stepmothers, but there's also how many movies about the bride not having a good relationship with the mother-in-law, or the husband or the groom not having a good relationship with the mother-in-law.
Right.
And when you think about that, I don't think there's very many movies at all again about, well, what about the dad? What about the father-in-law?
Listen, the patriarchy is always at work.
But she talks about that she says, I can empathize with how hard it must be to see your daughter marry someone who will take her away from you. But it's the framing of it, right? Like, what if it was that not that somebody's being taken away from you, but that somebody's being added to you? But I think that's why we get, as a parent, you're with your kids day in and day out, driving the soccer mom minivan, driving the baseball van, going to gymnastics band, taekwondo, whatever it is, basketball, whatever it is. And you're the one there and you're needed and you're needed. And so recently I was having this conversation with Vincent, and he's 21 now. So he was saying something like, Mom, I like to hang out with you, but not all the time. And I want to go do and be and have things like with my friends, which is so totally natural.
Absolutely.
Right. But there was this one time I said to him something like, oh, do you want to go see such and such concert or go to so and so a sporting event. And he was trying so hard to be nice and didn't come across nice at all because he was pretty much like, well, yeah, I want to go do that, but I'm going to go do that with my friends.
Yeah, but not with you.
And not with you, Mom. And so it's hard because when you have to have those things change or slip away, you have to, as a parent, I think, be really mature enough to detach yourself from the emotion that you feel when your kids do grow up. And so I often think about even myself. I'm sure there were times that my mom really wanted to do stuff or be there. And I remember like later in life, my mom would say things like, is it, well, you don't have to, well, it's okay. Well, you don't really have to invite me, or it's okay if you don't have space in the car or whatever like that. And always we would be like, what? Of course you're coming with us. Like, why would you not go? And then we were offended, like, do you not want to go? Like, are you saying that you don't want to go? So then there's that flip side as well.
Yeah.
So, and she was probably thinking, gosh, it would be great to have like some peace and be by myself for once. And we're thinking, why would you want to be by yourself?
Yeah. And it's, like, when we have kids, right? And we think about, and like when our parents had us, right? And like all of this stuff, like we have certain expectations of how we think things will go. And when things deviate from that, unnaturally, naturally, right? Like all of that, it creates feelings inside of us of that are uncomfortable. And I don't know. I think like most of our problems in life are the fact that we just don't want to be uncomfortable because uncomfortable feels unsafe and unsafe is bad in our most primitive brain, right? Of like, we just can't handle it. And so, I as someone who's raising kids, as somebody who's building businesses, I think those are two of the biggest things that like shine a light back on you of like, oh, here's all your problems because you're like, it comes like flipped back around on you. But it's that struggle really, like if you break it all down very simply of I don't like the feeling that, and again, I go back to solve for happy, that my expectation versus my perception of reality are in mismatch, right? I expected my kids to do this. I expected, this sort of evolution. I expected this kind of relationship with them. And it wasn't that for whatever reason, naturally, unnaturally, right? My expectations were wrong. My perception of reality was wrong, like, or it was right, or it was whatever, like, right? Like there's always this mismatch and it puts us out of balance of happiness, but it evokes really uncomfortable feelings in ourselves and we don't deal with it. We don't want to deal with it. We shove it away. And so then we flip back into, let me tell you what to do that puts you on the path that I want you on because that's more comfortable for me. And the greatest gift we could ever give, I think, our kids is to have the skills to be uncomfortable, have the skills to create space between them triggering you with whatever crazy thing they're coming up for and your reaction to it. You have to react, you have to respond to it, but like enough space to not lean right immediately into that uncomfortableness where it's like, oh, what do you mean, right? Like I remember telling a family member that when my husband and I were engaged and we were moving in together, we weren't married, right? Like, but we were moving in together. And it was this immediate like rejection of it. Like it was an exciting moment for me, like a big milestone in my life. Like I found my person, we're getting married, we're building this life together. Step one, we're combining our lives. It's a good thing. It also just makes sense too. Like, right? Like there's just it should have been nothing but goodness. And that moment in my head will never be goodness because my reality didn't meet their expectation and the things they said back to me immediately. Their response was like, okay, well, like, why do I even tell you this? Like, why did I, like, what was the point of this conversation? Because all I guess I did was disappoint you and your expectations, and all you did was disappoint me in my expectations of like shared joy and what this is. And we get to then this point of when we see these patterns over and over again in our families, if we are grieving the relationship we wanted, the expectations we had for what this combination, this web of us should have been and is not. And then what do you do with that, right? And that's where this theory kicks back in. Like, let them have their expectations, let them have whatever they want, but let me figure out what I do with that.
100%. You have to really sit with this chapter because she challenges you to think about, okay, if it is somebody in your family, somebody that's not just a coworker, do you want this person in your life? And this is her words. She says, if you do, then the let them theory will create the space for it. But then she says, if you decide whether or not you're going to accept people as they are or create the distance that you need, all it takes is one person to change the way they show up in a family, and the entire system can change for the better. And that person is you. And so if you decide that it's worth it to try to let people be who they are, you be who you are, but that those people are still your people, then I think it's a matter of deciding, like, is it destructive to your health and well-being to stay in that environment? Because just because somebody has your DNA doesn't mean they're for you. And
Yeah.
just like that somebody that is it has your DNA is not against you. Like,
Right.
it is. And so I think if you can focus on, again, the whole point of the book, focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your energy, your healing, if there's something that you need to heal from, then the possibility is about be the change. I have this painting that my friend gave me, Ava gave me this painting a couple years ago that says, be the change. And it is that if you want to see change in the world, then you have to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
starts with you. And anytime you improve yourself, it's going to improve other things around you. And so that's the point of these self-development books. Oftentimes, our books are leadership development books, but isn't it really, no matter what we read, if it's called a leadership development book, it's about developing yourself as the leader. And it's why we call our podcast a life and leadership podcast. These
Yeah.
things apply to your home and at work.
Yeah, and all leadership starts within. It starts with you. If you cannot lead yourself, you cannot lead other people. And I think one of my favorite lines from this chapter is people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. Most people haven't gone to therapy, haven't looked at their issues, and they don't want to. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And that's really it. And you get to accept, and there's like radical acceptance of that fact. They are who they are. They probably aren't going to change. It's like, I don't know how many girlfriends I've told about, partners of theirs, like, when they show you who they are, believe them. They are who they are, right? And, so many times we get caught in the idea of like, we want something to be different. We want someone to be someone different, and everyone is capable of growth and change and development. But unless they are showing you that they are on the trajectory, you should be far more concerned with your trajectory than your current results, right? From Atomic Habits. You have to accept who they are as they are. They only know themselves. They only can meet you as deeply as they have met themselves. Accept it. Let them be who they are and decide what you do from there. And is that, okay, I'm going to work on this relationship. I'm going to let them go. And anything in between. There's an entire world and spectrum of that. It's not black. Nothing on this planet and nothing in this life is black and white. Not a single thing is black and white. Binaries do not exist. Everything is on a spectrum, and relationships can be, especially the relationships with people in your life that you were born into, that you were raised around or whatever, and you get to choose. You accept and you let them be who they are, and you get to choose what to do with that in a way, if we pull back from the last chapter, that makes you proud of yourself. Never disappoint yourself. And so figure out what those relationships really should be and let there be nuance to it. I think, when we listen to the, like I said at the beginning of this, the world is full of discourse on this topic, kind of from a generational perspective. And so often I see it be this black and white. We're going to cut the family member off. We're going to, totally forgive them and excuse all their bad behavior. And like, the world is not those two things. It's in between, and it's a nuanced approach. It's hard. Yes, but the nuance is worth it because it lets you be proud of who you are. You aren't disappointed in the effort that you put in, what you wanted and what you got. And yes, there is grief when the expectation doesn't meet reality, and it is okay to work through that grief.
I love how you describe that. It's a spectrum. And wherever you are on that, she summarizes the end of this chapter really well by saying, okay, we do fear what other people think, say, and do about us, specifically if it's whatever they're thinking, saying, and doing, and it's regarding ourselves. And that sometimes we let what people think take over what we choose to do. It's like when we talked about, I think last week, where you're at this crossroads maybe, and you have to make a choice. Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I stand still? Do I go back to where I came from? This chapter in this book teaches us how to stop giving so much power to other people over our lives. And so she summarizes it in these three ways. This is take two. We just had a power outage in this great state of PA from the heat wave. And you actually lost your power because it's so hot there. And I think in Florida, it's just so hot here every day that we're used to it.
Yeah,
Glad to have you
craziness.
back.
Yep, we're back. Yeah, I was actually getting my hair done yesterday and we lost power in the middle of my hair sitting under one of those like 1950s hair dryers. So yes, apparently Pennsylvania cannot handle the heat, much like the South can't handle the snow. So here we are. Denise was in the middle of like a lovely explanation and we cut out. So we are going to splice this together weirdly for you. That's what's going on. And yeah, so you were wrapping up, I think, nicely this chapter and really talking about how she wraps this up with 3 points. So sorry to interrupt with my power outage.
It's okay because we were literally almost to the end. So, just in summary, there's a couple things to think about. This is about how do you handle loving difficult people. This chapter was really about difficult people in your family. Next week, we're going to talk about dealing with someone else's emotional reactions to the things that you are going through. And I think it sort of pivots us back to it's still about the people that are around your inner circle. So it could be people at work, it could be people in your household, but it starts to go back to dealing with things that happen in a work setting. But reality is, we talk about this often. There's no such thing as work-life balance. We have a life, work is part of it. And sometimes when things are going sideways in our home life, it bleeds into our work life and vice versa. And
Yep.
so the issue with this chapter is about giving other people's opinions more weight than you give your opinions that you already have of yourself. We're talking about specifically self-centeredness, self-directedness, selfness. This is not selfish. It is self-centered. It is about you focusing on what is best for you and not letting other people's opinions weigh that much heavier on what you decide to think, say, or do, which is the point of this book. And to let them be okay with letting them have opinions, and that's okay because they love you. And sometimes we've learned in this chapter that their opinions are blunt because they love you and they have a stake in your happiness and success. But sometimes you may have to decide that the truth is that you have to make a separation. And if it's because it is so unhealthy for you to stay in that environment that you have to separate from that, then you have to make a separation from that. And that the solution is really about tying into your values so that you could go to sleep at night and say, I did the best I could do with what I have. I'm proud of myself. I'm happy with the decisions that I made. And maybe you aren't 100% happy with every decision you make all the time, but the decisions you make, you have to own.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that idea of, people, you can't control what other people do. And it's the hardest with the people closest to you, right? The people who you think should act in a certain way, should do this, right? We hold all these expectations for what we want these relationships to be. And you've got, you say it all the time, like you've got to put your oxygen mask on the airplane before you put somebody else's on. You've got to make sure that you are taking care of what is right for you. And discomfort's okay. Not every relationship is perfect. Not everything is good, right? And so there's this difference. Again, it's not a spectrum. It's not an all in or all out. It's how do I show up? What is right for me? What is serves me correctly in the life that I want at the end of the day? And what do I do with that? The let me part of it is so very important here. And let me should always be nuanced.
So next week, we're going to talk about when grown-ups throw tantrums.
I've seen this plenty of times. I cannot wait.
It should be an interesting one, especially because we said this week, or is it this week or last week? We said at one time, this week or last week, that everybody is living this life for the first time.
Yeah.
And so sometimes a grown-up, we have a lot of expectations on a grown-up, but they're just an older person in a body. So I'm looking forward to next week's discussion and seeing where that heads. But for this week, I'm Denise Russo, and on behalf of my friend Sam Powell, this has been another episode of What's on Your Bookshelf.